From the outside, our house looked like a dream. White walls, high fences, a garden that bloomed all year. But inside that house I was a ghost. Every night they sat around the long marble table. My stepfather, his 2 children, and my mother. Plates of grilled chicken, foreign rice, imported juice. I sat at the very end, always served last, always silent. My name is Lamy. I was 10 when my mother married Chief Duro, a man who smiled in public but had a heart cold enough to freeze a volcano. He never hit me. He didn't need to. His silence did the job. On the first day I moved in, he gave his children, Deji and Adizwa, brand new tablets, backpacks, and private school admission letters. He handed me a worn-out textbook from 5 years ago and said, "Public school will toughen you up." That night, I sat in my new room. Tiny, windowless, once a storage room. And I listened as my step-siblings celebrated their upcoming trip to London for summer school. I buried my face in my pillow so no one would hear me cry. Still, I never complained. I woke up early every day, ironed their uniforms, packed their lunches, and then walked myself to the overcrowded public school with broken chairs and no chalk. I studied hard, harder than anyone around me. I sat in front, raised my hand, stayed behind to ask questions. Knowledge became my hiding place. When I came home with the highest result in class, Chief barely looked up from his newspaper. "Well, books can't teach you class," he muttered, sipping his imported wine. My mother? She gave me a tired smile but said nothing. They sent Adizwa to a university in Canada when she turned 16. Deji followed a year later. I was left behind again, with no laptop, no internet, just borrowed books and my determination. What they didn't know was that I wasn't just studying. I was watching. I watched how Chief treated people who had nothing. I watched how he laughed when he thought I didn't matter. I watched how Adizwa bragged about her degree while cheating through every exam. I remembered everything. Every slight, every snub, every door slammed in my face. And I stored them not as wounds but as fuel. On my 21st birthday, they didn't even remember. No calls, no cake. I sat alone in the old kitchen, writing my scholarship application by candlelight. It was to a university in Finland, a program I'd found after months of sneaking into cyber cafes, using saved pocket change from doing house chores. When I hit submit, something inside me shifted. They'd built a world that didn't have a place for me, but I was going to build one where I owned the map. 3 months later, I stood at the airport, visa in hand, 1 suitcase, and a one-way ticket. And just as I was about to board, I saw a familiar name on the flight manifest, Adizwa Duro. Adizwa walked into the boarding gate like it was a runway, braids flowing, designer bag on one shoulder, and that same smug look she wore every Christmas when she graced our family with her presence. I almost turned away. I didn't want to deal with her, not now. Not when I was finally escaping. But then her voice rang out. "Wait, Lamy?" I froze. She walked closer, squinting like I was some charity case she couldn't quite place. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone a cocktail of confusion and mockery. "Cleaning staff for the airline?" I smiled. "Just a little." "No," I said calmly. "I'm flying to Finland. On scholarship." Her jaw twitched just for a second. Then she scoffed. "Well, isn't that cute? Europe will chew you up and spit you out, sweetheart." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The difference between us wasn't just our destination. It was our purpose. Adizwa was flying back to her comfort zone. I was flying toward my destiny. Finland was cold, unforgiving, icy, and beautiful. I arrived with barely enough money to cover my meals for the first week. But I had something stronger than currency: discipline. While others partied, I studied. I worked night shifts cleaning offices and used the free Wi-Fi to attend online courses in business, coding, and education management. I was enrolled in one university, but I was building my own in secret. My professors noticed. One of them, Professor Emilia Saarinen, pulled me aside one day and said, "You have something most people never find: direction." She became my mentor, helped me land a research position. That role turned into a teaching assistantship, which turned into a co-publishing credit. Every achievement was a quiet step forward. No applause, no cheer, just momentum. I didn't tell anyone back home. They thought I was still some poor girl stuck in public school. Even my mother had stopped calling. But I stayed focused. I built an app to help international students navigate life abroad. Then I created a small digital platform to teach underprivileged kids in Africa using recycled devices. That platform grew faster than I expected. 2 years later, a Finnish investor saw what I was doing and offered funding. "We'll back this," he said. "But you're not just building an app anymore, Lami. You're building a new kind of school." That night, as I signed the first investor agreement of my life, I Googled the name of the university Adizwa was attending in Canada. I smiled. I wasn't just going to compete with it, I was going to buy it. 2 years later, the world still didn't know my name, but my work was everywhere. What started as a simple education app had grown into MindRise Global, a tech-enabled, borderless learning platform connecting students in over 15 countries. My face wasn't on the homepage. My voice wasn't in the press. I stayed in the shadows, quiet, focused, calculating. I didn't need to be seen. I needed to own. Through a holding company registered in Europe, I began acquiring stakes in small colleges that were struggling post-pandemic. My strategy was simple. I bought struggling schools, upgraded their systems using my platform, and rebranded them under the MindRise umbrella. Within a year, we had 6 institutions on 3 continents. But I wasn't done. I had my eyes on something bigger. One afternoon, while reviewing acquisition targets with my legal team, I spotted a familiar name buried in a document. Carleton International College, Ontario. I paused. Was that? I double-checked the records. Yes, that was the same school Adizwa had flaunted all over Instagram. The same one Chief Duro bragged about funding. And it was drowning in debt. They were quietly looking for a buyout to stay afloat. I sat still for a moment. Then I leaned forward and said, "Add it to the priority list." The negotiations took 4 months. Through a silent partner and shell firm, we submitted the offer. By the time Carleton's board agreed to the sale, they still didn't know who the true buyer was. They just knew someone had swooped in to save them from collapse. I didn't fly in for the signing. I didn't need to. I just sat in my minimalist Helsinki apartment, sipped warm tea, and watched the ink dry on a deal that had once felt like fantasy. I didn't want revenge. I wanted ownership. 3 weeks after the deal closed, I received an email from Carleton's system, automated, routine, impersonal. It read, "To Dr. Lami D. Subject, System Administrator Credentials, Carleton College." Attached were login details to the internal university system. As I logged in for the first time, a strange silence filled the room. This was it. The school that once shut doors on girls like me, now open to my password. I clicked on the student registry out of curiosity and typed in a name, Adizwa Duro. She was still enrolled. Final semester. Studying international business. GPA 2.1. Funny. She'd always mocked public schools. Mocked me. But now she was about to graduate from a school that bore my initials in its new board structure. The next day, I drafted a personal welcome message to be sent to all students in their new university app, signed simply, Dr. L. Duro, Executive Director, MindRise Global. Let's see how long it takes her to recognize the name. It took exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes for Adizwa to react. I got the alert while in a boardroom in Berlin, pitching MindRise expansion into Asia. My phone buzzed. A direct message came through the university's app support portal, flagged as urgent. Is this a joke? Who is Dr. L. Duro? I almost laughed. The irony. She had spent her whole life carrying our stepfather's name like it was royalty, using it to open doors, enter rooms, intimidate classmates. And now, the same name was echoing back at her, on a platform she didn't control, from a woman she once called charity case. I didn't respond. I let her sit in it. That week, our marketing team rolled out the new school identity across all platforms. Carleton International was now MindRise Academy, Canada, with a banner that read, "Reimagined by Dr. L. Duro." The campus signage changed. The website changed. Email domains changed. And suddenly, Adizwa couldn't escape the name. I received a second email, this time from the university's student affairs office. There's a student, Adizwa Duro, requesting a transfer due to personal conflict with new leadership branding. How should we proceed? I sat back, letting the moment sink in. Years ago, I'd have begged to even share her classroom. Now she wanted to run from mine. That weekend, I flew to Canada, not to visit the school, but for a speaking engagement at a global Women in Tech summit. After the event, as I walked through the hotel lobby, someone called out from behind. Lami, I turned. It was my mother. I hadn't seen her in years. She looked older, thinner, unsure of what to say. I saw you on the magazine cover, she whispered. Mindrise. They said it's you. I nodded. Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I let them treat you like less. I didn't protect you. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. She was a victim of the same silence I once lived in. And now, seeing me standing in front of her, powerful, polished, unbroken, was punishment enough. I gently placed my hand on her shoulder. I made it, I said softly. That's what matters. She asked if Chief knew. I smiled. Not yet. But he was about to find out in the most unexpected way. Because next week, I wasn't just sending a letter. I was sending an invitation addressed to Chief Duro himself to attend the rebranding ceremony of my university. The invitation was formal, gold-trimmed, elegant, subtle. Mindrise Academy Rebranding Gala, celebrating the future of global education. Guest of honor, Dr. L. Duro, founder and executive director, and at the bottom, in small, bold letters, special recognition of key supporters in education. I knew Chief Duro couldn't resist that line. Vanity was his compass. Sure enough, 3 days later, RSVP confirmed. Chief Adebayo Duro, attending with guest. Guest? I already knew who it would be. Either his new wife or a business associate hoping to soak in some reflected glory. He had no idea he'd be stepping into a hall owned, brick by digital brick, by the same girl he once starved of opportunity. The gala was hosted in the school's largest auditorium, newly renovated under my directive. High ceilings, soft lights, banners that carried the Mindrise logo in every corner. I stood backstage in a sleek, wine-colored suit. No frills, no theatrics, just power dressed in silence. A staff member peeked in. They've arrived, she whispered. I didn't flinch. From the wings, I saw him walk in. Chief Duro. Same oversized agbada. Same confident swagger. He greeted people like royalty. And then, he saw the massive digital screen at the center of the stage. It read, Welcome, Dr. Lami Duro, founder, visionary, the future of African education. He stopped walking. Adizwa was beside him, stiff as stone. I stepped onto the stage moments later, greeted by thunderous applause. But I only looked at one person in the crowd. His eyes locked on mine, confused, suspicious, then terrified. I spoke calmly, clearly. I once sat at the back of a classroom with no windows, no air, no books, just a teacher who believed in me. That belief was a seed. And today you're standing inside the forest it grew. The audience clapped, but I didn't break eye contact with him. This school, this brand, this vision, belongs to the girl no one thought would matter. Silence. Then I added, for him alone. I'd like to thank those who once denied me opportunity, because in doing so, they taught me what it meant to create my own. The audience rose to their feet, but Chief never clapped. After the ceremony, he approached me. Alone. Lami, he said, his voice unsure for the first time in years. Why didn't you tell us? I tilted my head slightly. You never asked. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Then he whispered, Is it revenge? I smiled. No, this is ownership. The next day, headlines exploded. Once overlooked stepdaughter now owns stepfather's alma mater. And that was just the beginning. Because my next acquisition was already in motion. His private secondary school in Lagos. The news went viral within 24 hours. Former stepdaughter buys prestigious Canadian university. Mindrise CEO shocks Nigeria with surprise takeover. Stepfather's charity case now owns his legacy. Chief Duro didn't respond publicly. But privately, I heard through quiet sources that he'd locked himself in his study for 2 days. The man who once looked down on public school kids was now watching his own daughter graduate under my name. The man who said I'd never fit into his world had just been made a guest in mine. But this was never about humiliation. It was about redirection. 2 months later, I stood in Lagos, in front of the gates of a school I once walked past every day as a child, Top Pillar College. It was the same elite private school Chief Duro had bragged about helping to found. The one that never returned my mother's scholarship request. That day, the school's board signed the final papers. Top Pillar now belonged to Mindrise Nigeria. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post online. I simply walked through the gates, greeted the staff, and began renovations. We built computer labs, opened scholarship programs, and for the first time in its 30-year history, the school began admitting students from the local public schools, students who looked just like I once did. One afternoon, while inspecting the new tech hub on campus, a young girl approached me. She was about 10. She held a worn-out notebook and said shyly, "Ma, I want to learn how to build an app like yours." I knelt down, smiled, and took the notebook. "You will," I said, "and I'll be right here when you do." That moment, more than the headlines, more than the boardroom wins, that was my victory. I didn't just rewrite my story. I was helping others write theirs. Weeks later, I received a letter. Handwritten. The ink was shaky. The paper slightly stained. It was from my mother. "Lami, every day I thank God for you. You turned our silence into strength. You made them remember the daughter they tried to forget. Chief is quiet now. He watches the news but says nothing. Maybe he's finally realizing who you were all along." I folded the letter, placed it in my drawer, and looked out over the city skyline from my office window. The sun was setting, but for me, it felt like morning. Final lines. I wasn't the forgotten stepdaughter anymore. I wasn't the girl in the corner of the dinner table. I was Dr. Lami Duro, the one who built what they could never take from me. Not revenge. Legacy. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.